Hello everyone. We are back to the final section here, part 3, Rhetoric, in this trivium mini course. So, in Rhetoric we're covering the concept of wisdom, that is, the behaviors that result after the taking in of information and then the processing of that information. And that leads to the generated result in the world. So it's the difference between wisdom and folly. The steps of the trivium, in other words, are knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. The opposite of wisdom is folly. A person does things that they know and understand, and the result is either good or bad. And this applies to anything. It can be like right action as far as a moral position goes, but it can also be something as simple as just baking a cake. If you do the steps wrong, you get the wrong ingredients, you put it in there wrong, whatever the case may be, you can either get a bad result or a good result. It's all how the recipe works out. So it's the how to do the thing. Rhetoric is more than the art of persuasion. It addresses the question of how to do a thing. So not only how to do a given task, but also how to form persuasive arguments for an audience, which, of course, is a thing to do. So in rhetoric, you get to choose your form and context. So as the presenter, you're crafting the message that leaves you with a huge range of options, and you choose the best form of argument to best fit the idea. There's a lot of different elements to that, and we're going to go over those. You can high spot things, you can downplay stuff, and you can choose the context of the topic to suit your purpose. This is used very deceptively, but as we'll see, it's not all bad. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested. This quote from the book Propaganda, written by Edward Bernays. Now, we saw that the syllogism is a logical expression of an idea that follows through from point A to point B. So, we have the enthymeme, which is the enemy of the syllogism. So where the syllogism seeks a rational conclusion, the enthymeme works toward deception, blurring the line that connects the premise and the conclusion. In ads and politics, they are abundant. And you'll notice that the line that connects the premises to the conclusion is the nexus. So, how do you know she is a witch? She looks like one. Not a very good conclusion. So here's the good news. It's not all gloom and doom for the domain of rhetoric. The sly, the cunning, and the dark might be very adept at crafting deception. However, the tool is just that. It's a tool. Knowing your way around rhetoric will allow you to know not just to see the deception, but craft uplifting messages into the world as well. So in rhetoric, we have 5 canons that form the basis of how to put together your argument. We have the invention part, which is the brainstorming part, a little bit more like the grammar phase, where you're assembling your ideas and putting the relevant factors into your topic. Next, we have arrangement, which is organizing all of those factors to make the maximum persuasive impact. The next component is style. This is getting down to the nitty-gritty of picking the right words, picking the right analogies, using all of these little nuances to put together your argument so that it is really, really sharp and dialed in. The next part is just memory, just remembering what to say, how to say it, and walking your way through your argument and through the stuff you're doing with all of those rhetorical elements. Then, of course, there's the delivery. Practicing your intonations, practicing your figures of speech and tropes that we'll get into a little bit later, and putting the fine point on it, really sharpening that argument that you want to make. So in rhetoric, we have 3 appeals. We have the appeal to character, which is ethos. The next appeal is the appeal to logic, just plain straight logic. And the final appeal is the appeal to emotions. This is pathos. And you can see the examples of the pictures that I have for these. James Bond, Spock, and a funny picture from the internet that I think portrays pathos pretty well. So, moving on from that, we have a couple additional elements that we're going to cover, because not everything is quite as it seems, because decorum is a little bit different from ethos in the sense that it's not just the suit, but how it looks, how it fits. So it's matching up your topic to your style. And this is the essence of decorum. It's a little bit different from ethos. And my example here, bad decorum. You'll know it when you see it. So, the next part for this is the 3 kairos. These are the points in time that an argument can be placed. Where in time you're going to have as your setting, and how will that affect the way the argument plays out. So, you have your past, present, and future. In the past, we have judicial and forensic. This deals with just hard evidence, facts, and all of the elements that make up just anything that is dealing with the past. Then we have the ceremonial in the present, or the epidectic, and this deals more with the current moment. You'll find a lot of ad hominems in here. This is probably a lot of the media that you take in, really, is going to be based on ceremonial, because it's just in the present moment, very myopic, not very reflective, and it's not that that's a bad thing, it's just that it's something that deals with the current circumstance. You'll find a lot of praise and blame. Then there's the deliberative, or political, dealing with the future. And this places your argument into a more forward-looking perspective, that you get a lot of either false promises, but you can also have a lot of great ideas out there in the future. And this is something that's more work towardsable, if that makes sense, or if that's even a word. But it's something that's out there in the future, and placing your argument out there in the future is often more useful because it gets people out of the blaming phase of the ceremonial, or just pointing at all of this past evidence. So it's more of a clean slate that focuses on solutions, but it can also be filled with false promises. So, very popular with the political placement of arguments. Now we have types of proof. This might not seem to be the type of proof that you'd think of as being proof, because we have a subjective component, which is invented by the rhetor, so it's not technically proof. So, the objective in artificial type of proof is what most people think about when they think of proof. It's the actual facts that are gathered for the purpose of scientific analysis. These are the things that really did happen. or the things that really are the way that they are. Then there's the subjective proof, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because you can make really good, sound arguments using subjective proof that are actually very positive. Like if you're placing your argument in the future with the deliberative, then you can make really good arguments that make a lot of sense. But the whole idea behind the subjective artificial proof is that it's just invented. So it's making use of analogies and points that can be true or false, so you can get a lot of deception in this. But it's not always used that way. Sometimes it's just a really good argument that might convince you into something that you didn't know was a good thing, but once you're there, you're like, oh wow, like a vacation maybe could be something that you could think of where it's like, I'm not really sure about that, but persuading yourself into it through these more subjective appeals, and then finding out that it was a wonderful idea. Next we have topics. Topics fall into these two categories. The general topics cover more conceptual things like comparisons and the types of things, and then natural consequences, things such as gravity. Then the special topics deal more with ethical types of ideas like right and wrong, expedience, things like that, and then of course we have praise and blame, so this is a little bit more subjective in that sense. So, in our final slide here, we have figures and tropes. Now, figures and tropes are the icing on the cake of rhetoric. Artistically crafted thought that goes beyond the statement. These take forms like metaphor and analogy, hyperbole and litany, struggle with that one a little, lightities, irony, and euphemism. These are kind of the juiciness of conversation that brings things to life and makes things a lot more fun and interesting when you're listening to someone who doesn't drone like a robot. So, this is essentially all I have for this presentation on rhetoric. Once again, this is just a mini-series. There's a lot more that you can do with this, and there's a lot more to it than just that. So, up next, we have an adventure and resources, which is more on you, because I'm just going to put some of the links in the description of this video, so that way you can look through some of the resources and dig into this topic for yourself. Very thankful to have made this. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much for watching. And stay tuned, we'll have more wonderful things like this coming out as we progress along the path here. So thank you very much.